The ultimate all-in-one electric homebrewing system is here. The new Grainfather G40 can produce up to 11 gallons of beer and features all the latest advancements in homebrewing technology, including wireless control so you can monitor your brew day from the Grainfather app. With an innovative new grain basket design that improves workflow, reaching mash efficiencies of 75% or more is easy. The 3300 watt heating element brings your wort to a boil quickly without any scorching, and the large hop plate filter guarantees that no unwanted grain matter or hop trub reaches your fermenter. Every G40 comes standard with a high-powered built-in pump that can handle temperatures over 200 degrees Fahrenheit and a full 3-year warranty that guarantees you'll be able to keep on brewing no matter what. The Grainfather G40 is available now at your favorite homebrew retailer or online at grainfather.com. Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Best ways to store bulk grains. American malt versus Continental malt. Is it safe to use expired malt extract? And catching up with Jason from Muntons. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 268. Well, hello, and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I'm your host, Joshua Stubing. Today I am joined by the president and chief keg washer of kegconnection.com over there, Mr. Todd Burns, and we have a very special guest. It's almost been 2 years since we've had you on the show, Mr. Jason Chalifour from Muntons. Jason, let me kill the music because Todd hates it when I talk over music that's loud. How are you doing, Jason? It's good to have you back.
I can't believe it's been that long. Yeah, thanks for inviting me back. Always fun doing the show.
Yeah, it's been like 100 episodes, right?
It was more because it's been over 2 years. You were last on episode 144, I think, and this is 268. So, but we had him do a Q&A once, which is why it probably feels like it wasn't that long ago. I think you did a Q&A for us in 2019. I think is what it was. Like
yes,
December,
that sounds about right.
December of 2019. Oh God, that's still been 2 years. It's 2022. Oh my God. Oh, time flies. Todd is texting me behind the. You can't send me threatening text messages when we start recording, Todd. Okay.
I thought you were going to read it afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so rude. Let me give some backstory. I may have forgotten to submit our proposal for a presentation at HomebrewCon this year. I may have forgotten, but I've
thanks for reminding us, so Jason.
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah, it's real nice having you back on the show, Jason. I'm glad we invited you.
I got mine in on time, Josh. I don't know what you're up to.
Yeah.
Wait, are you giving a presentation this year at HomebrewCon, or is that the plan? Have they even replied back to you? Because the deadline was like the 11th, I think.
It was. Yeah, I mean, I submitted it. We'll see if it gets approved. Looks like there's a whole process where they screen them all. They pick the ones they think the attendees will like the best. Then they give you notes and suggestions, and then basically tell you everything they want you to change. That's how I interpret it. So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Are you doing it on a specific thing with malt, or what is the topic that you're trying to present or wanting to present?
So it's going to be on brewing English ales, and malt's, obviously critical to those styles. So I'm going to talk a lot about malt, but really it's going to be a little bit more style focused.
Nice. That sounds fun. Yeah, we're going to, not gonna. I'm not defeated yet. We're gonna do one on draft systems. Building a keezer on a budget is the topic that we had discussed doing, which hopefully, maybe the AHA likes Todd. Maybe Todd will be the one to reach out to them and say, hey, my idiot director of marketing, which I don't even know why we give him that title, has forgotten.
I'm fine with idiot director of marketing.
Okay, yeah, I have to update.
That's a perfectly good title. Yeah.
Now I gotta update my business cards.
Yeah.
You
know what? That's my goal. I'm going to get business cards made for you.
That's perfect. Or it'll just be your handwritten, the word idiot right in front of all of it. If the shoe fits, right, or something like that. It has been a while since we've had you on. Before we, I normally when we do these shows where we have guests, we just kind of interview them and all. You're a friend of the show. A lot of people know you, but let's catch up with you. What have you been up to? What's the news with Muntons? And then your personal site would be brewmaster.com. How's all that going? How's Jason been?
Can't complain. So, talked about HomebrewCon. So we're starting to get kind of the ball rolling. Plan for our presence there. We have some new products that we've launched in the UK and Europe that we're planning to get launched in North America, expanding our extract lines, a new range of kits. So we're excited about that. And also the big thing I've been doing a lot of work on that we release is an alcohol-free malt extract. So it's a malt extract where we've changed the flavor profile so it can be a base in an alcohol-free beer. Right now, it's just on the pro side. We've sent out a whole bunch of samples to breweries all over North America. I've been doing a lot of work kind of helping those brewers, figuring out how to use it. 'Cause this is a little bit of a different process than just, a regular, all grain brew at a commercial brewery. So that's been fun and interesting. And I've been drinking a lot of alcohol-free beer, just kind of, educate myself. Usually, most of the beverages I drink tend to be functional, coffee for caffeine, water to hydrate, or, beer for, alcohol.
So Todd gives me flack a lot because I do drink decaffeinated coffee frequently. I have hypertension. It's not a choice I try to make, but he's always like, if I make a pot of it and he happens to pour from it without knowing what it is, he gets irate at me because he's like, what's the point of this? The taste is no different, right? To me, I can't tell a difference. And I know, like you're saying, the functional purpose of these beverages. For the alcohol-free, is it similar to where you would say the taste is there? It doesn't quite taste different. It's just functionally different? Or do you think it is obvious that this is alcohol-free?
Well, so alcohol-free beer has come a long way in general. To be more beer-like. At the end of the day, alcohol, unlike caffeine, is a flavor component of beer. It also adds mouthfeel and body to a beer. So by taking that out, you're always going to change it to at least some degree. The idea with alcohol-free beer is you don't want it to taste, worty or unfermented. You don't want it to be sweet. At the same time, you don't want any off flavors because the way alcohol-free beers were traditionally made, they'd either distill off the alcohol, which means you're heating up the beer, which would cause off flavors. So to make as good of a beverage as you can that's beer-like, that's still enjoyable on its own, that's the challenge. And in terms of recipe formulation, there's been some things that we've kind of figured out, both myself and our technical people in the UK, some adjustments you have to make to kind of account for the lack of alcohol. Because it also causes, it affects how your hop utilization is. If you throw 2 pounds per barrel of dry hops without the alcohol in to help solubilize those oils, the utilization isn't quite the same. So there are little things like that along the way that are a little bit different when doing alcohol-free or low alcohol brewing.
In your personal opinion, do you think alcohol-free is the next, I don't use the word fad pejoratively, but do you think it's the new thing for brewing, for home brewers and maybe the commercial market? Is that where you see more people being health conscious and maybe lifestyle choice conscious about, like, I don't want to be a drunkard, but I want some hopness in my beverage? Like, is that the next frontier, you think, of brewing fads?
It feels like it. I mean, I was at a talk in Michigan, and there was the speakers from one, I think it might have been Founders or one of the big Michigan breweries, and he had been in the industry for 30 years, and he had seen alcohol-free beers go up and go down. We've seen other styles, the 5 years ago was, the hard sodas, then they went away overnight. So, but I think this does have at least some staying power. The nice thing about our extract is you don't need any extra stuff to make an alcohol-free beer. Essentially, you boil it, you dilute it in water like extract, a little bit of a different, dilution rate, but then you boil it, you chill it, you carb it up, and it's ready to go. So theoretically, with our product, the home brewer, eventually we are going to put it out for home brew. I don't know when exactly we're looking at for that, but it is on the docket, if you will. But with our product, even the small, 1-2 barrel brewer can make an alcohol-free beer. Now, the only thing would be in the back of my mind is we've seen this with seltzer. You had, White Claw, you had Truly, they came on the scene, they blew up. Then everyone else tried making a seltzer, and then it kind of became a race to the bottom where eventually, it was a price war, and you had a few brands that are kind of winning out, and the ones that are maybe a little late to the game or can't hit a price point, they're maybe leaving the space. So we'll see if that happens with alcohol-free. One of the things when we launched the product at SIBA in the UK was, I think it's still on YouTube, one of the panelists was saying, there's a difference when if you go to a bar or tap room and they have like the dusty bottle of O'Doul's that they pull out of the fridge, or even like something like Athletic, or something made at the brewery on the tap. I think that feels different to people. So maybe that gives it a little bit more, potential where if I'm going to a brewery, I can have their alcohol-free beer.
I remember being a teenager. I may have been a preteen. I was a terrible kid. My buddy Tom's house. His parents, not only did they not have junk food in their thing, but the beer that I stole was an O'Doul's. I'm like 14-ish, had no idea it was alcohol-free, drinking it like, oh, beer is garbage.
Yeah.
It kept me from drinking for a good 8 years, or 7 years, because I was like so convinced that this beer I'm having right now is a representation, because why would my buddy's parents buy bad beer? My dad had Lone Star, but my dad kept a better track of his alcohol than my buddy's parents did. So that kept me from it. Todd, you had a look on your face. You have no interest in brewing alcohol-free beer, do you?
No, I'm shocked now when I go to some of the large stores that sell beer, how many they have on the shelf. I mean, there's a lot of them on the shelf now. So it is really pretty amazing. I don't usually drink in January, and I actually looked at the alcohol-free beer. It just, I don't know. I did carbonated water instead, but
yeah, you made a Topo Chico clone that was incredible. Actually, I mean, very close to the actual Topo Chico.
Yeah, so maybe I could brew alcohol-free beer before next January. I don't know. I'm not terribly excited about it.
Well, Jason, alcohol-free, it's not, I mean, it's like kombucha levels of alcohol, right? It's not, what does it have to be?
It's usually like half of 1% or less.
Oh, okay.
Correct. So our product, it's not designed to be fermented, so it's 0%. We have had brewers like, let's say, my brewery, I want to replicate my pale ale alcohol-free. You could blend the alcohol-free with a little bit of the regular beer to get to that under 0.5%, get a little bit of that fermented character in there. So that's one way to do it. The way they've been done traditionally is the distillation, which we talked about. There are machines out there now where you filter it through a membrane and you get alcohol-free beer out one side and then the alcohol coming out the other side, which a nice byproduct of that is you have alcohol that you can make a seltzer. The only issue is I've heard those machines run like $1 million. So, but if you're regional,
Trub Club's growing, Jason. We have some.
If you were a small operation, the other issue would be now you're distilling, which is illegal unless you have a license. So it could get complicated. Yeah,
a very expensive license. Yeah.
Or you could try to arrest fermentation. But even if you guys do pretty big homebrew batches. Imagine you're doing a lager and you're trying to get it from 55 to 39 in 8 hours to stop fermentation before you get over that 0.5%. You need a really, really robust cooling system to do that, which again is going to, bring significant cost.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. No, I'll just tell you now, I have no desire for alcohol free.
Yeah.
But also, I was going to say, though, I was going to accuse you if you made an alcohol free, but it wasn't 0%. I was going to accuse you of cheating dry January, because that's some booze. That's not truly dry. That's like.
Isn't like the alcohol tolerance for grape juice like 1%?
Oh, I didn't know that. Is it? What time?
I think so. Yeah.
So you would have to drink. I mean, think about this. Think about how you'd have to drink 10 beers to have the equivalent of a Budweiser. You'd be so full that you wouldn't be able to drink. I mean, I don't think that would be cheating.
All right. I mean, I'll argue semantics with you all day. If there's any alcohol in it, then you're not dry, my friend. You're not dry.
Yeah. The most important thing there, I think, is that I don't care about your opinion on it. So it wouldn't really affect my thing. So
whatever. I think there'll be plenty of people in the comments supporting me, saying, "Yeah, that's just his way of cheating." You can make a hop tea if that's what I think a lot of people do as well, if they want a hoppy beverage without alcohol. But I'd be interested to see if it comes to the homebrew market, Jason, how it does with people, the reception. Because we started doing this new weekly show called Booze News Weekly, and publishes on Mondays. And I'm just so inundated with my inbox with news from this company's new alcohol free, or this new like, it is not for beer necessarily, not just for beer. A lot of alcohol free beverages are coming to market at the commercial level, and obviously these companies have a lot of money to do market research, so I don't think they're doing it out of nowhere. So I don't have healthy friends, Jason. This is all new to me, right? Like, I didn't know people cared about the caloric intake of their alcoholic beverage,
or maybe it's because of the alcohol, not the caloric.
I think, or a mixture of both. You're right. Yeah.
Because generally, the caloric value of a beer is going to roughly correlate to the alcohol content. Most of the calories are either from the fermented alcohol or from the residual sugars in there. Now, alcohol-free beers are going to be low carb, low calorie, just because there's not a lot to them. Mm-hmm. I think the ones we've done, they're like 60 to 70 calories per, 12 ounce or 333 mils. So that's also appealing to, people who are health conscious, aging, watching their weight, what have you.
Yeah. Which doesn't apply to any of us on this show.
No,
that's not true. I'm aging.
You are aging. You're right. You took my thunder. I was about to say, well, one of us. But this morning, Jason, we're on a call. Speaking of aging, I have to host this meeting for us. We're doing a vendor meeting, and I didn't have my hat on, and I'm balding, if you don't know, and I shaved my head recently. And as soon as I get on the call, Todd goes, "Oh God, baldy." The first thing he says to me. I'm almost 37 years old, Todd. I'm getting up there. But you have a beautiful head of hair, Todd, so I guess age doesn't.
Yeah,
you have good,
50.
You have good genes. Jason, too. Darn it. Everybody on this show, James has a beautiful head of hair. He's like, "Oh, I'm balding." I'm like, "You know what, James? Forget you, man. That's not balding. You're barely thinning." And he's 50.
Almost 55. Yep. Yeah. Just a few more days.
Yeah, for you. That's right. You are almost 55. God, you are aging.
That's old.
And we haven't. Yeah, I'll keep the show going. We haven't seen you since pre-COVID days. We don't have to go deep on this or whatever, but how has it affected your side of the industry? And, it seems like every company I deal with in every industry has shipping's delayed, COVID. Oh, supply chain issues, COVID. COVID has become the legitimate or not, the scapegoat for a lot of woes. Has Muntons had to navigate that just like the rest of us in the world?
Oh yeah. I mean, our container costs have, almost doubled. Actually, I think they've more than doubled in the past, year or so. So we got to manage that. And it takes longer for us to get product here. Where I am in Massachusetts, used to be the product for my customers to go out of the port of Felixstowe, which is one of the biggest deep water ports in England. It would go straight to New York and then to our warehouse in Western Mass. Now it goes from Felixstowe to either Antwerp or Le Havre or Germany or Portugal. It sits at the port there for 2, 3, 4 weeks. Then it makes it to New York. And then we got to get the container out of there. So it takes us longer to get stuff here too, on top of it being expensive. And then that's on top of, actually just getting the containers in the UK to load up in the first place. It's starting to get better. I heard today in our meeting that, the container availability is starting to loosen up a little bit. I don't think costs are going down anytime soon. But if we can get product here consistently, which last year we were able to, it was just taking longer. And then kind of towards the end of the year, getting product became a little bit more of a challenge. But I think we might start to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel in terms of just, more predictable on the logistics side.
It's crazy. I've joined the community on Reddit called The Brewery. I've been on it for a while. It's just, commercial brewers posting their stuff and whatever. And one guy said, I forget where he gets it from his vendor, but rolled oats just went up on them like 35% overnight. So it led to this long thread of them talking about, 2022 is the year of tight margins and just, clenching your butt for trying to survive it, because it's hard to take a pint that was like normally $5.50 and overnight tell your customers actually now it's $7 or whatever. But breweries are having to do what they have to do, because again, there's still issues with getting stuff in, and like you said, the cost of goods doesn't look like it's going down anytime soon.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have talked about this on the show, but the barley crop last year in North America was horrible. Horrific. Yeah, so up in Montana, Idaho, the Canada right over the border where they grow a lot of the North American barley, yields were down 35-40%. Yeah, and barley stocks are at 40-50 year lows. So if that's affecting oats, for example, prices are going up, and they're going to be high until we have a couple of good harvests, hopefully. And what that also does, barley being a global market, when a major market like Canada is that far down, where they're even bringing in malt from Australia and from Europe to blend with the domestic crop so they can hit their product specification, it's causing prices, globally to rise.
Yeah, it's a crazy time to be alive right now. I know when we, sometimes customers will give flack. Like I've talked about, we're raising the price of our Trub Club recipe receiving stuff, and Todd can attest to you, it's not because this is a money-making endeavor. I'm just bad at math and started it off too low in price. And shipping, and not just the cost of the ingredients, shipping, man. Like you covered that or you just talked about your container costs. Shipping is ridiculous right now. We send a recipe for Trub Club just to the other side of our state, and it's like, oh yeah, on the low end, $18. Like what? And then most of our people in our Trub Club are all over the country, right? Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, I bet the average cost is more than 25 now.
It is. It absolutely is. Yeah, I have last month's in front of me here. Actually, the average cost was right for everybody in our Trub Club was right at $30. It's $30 like shipping. That's a lot for a thing that you're not charging that much for. Again, I'm not good at math. We've established that, Todd. You don't have to look at me like that. Moving on. Let me. I'm not going to edit out the awkward silence because I need it for dramatic effect. So we do have questions. Jason was nice enough to say that he would help us do these questions. Before we get to that, because I forgot to do it at the top of the show, let me remind you, y'all can't see it on screen, but there it is. If you joined, speaking of our Trub Club, and you want a heck of a deal on a recipe, this month we're shipping out the Dusseldorf Altbier, including Kaiser, which is GO2 from our friends at Imperial Yeast. Also, when you join at any level, recipe receiving or not, you are entered in to win the February giveaway, a dual body Tapright regulator courtesy of Todd Burns at KegConnection.com. All right, now we do have questions. All that stuff you can find at patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. Oh, and I would be remiss, actually, golly, we have listener feedback this week, Todd. You were getting after me because none of the questions were voicemail, and I said, but I have voicemail, so it's time for listener feedback. Sorry for making you exposed to that, Jason, but our listener feedback comes from our buddy Peter from Ottawa.
Hey, this is Peter from Ottawa, Canada, and this is not a question. This is some feedback. You guys had mentioned doing a Marzen or an Oktoberfest with ale yeast. I can tell you that I do this regularly, and it is one of my favorite beers. I call it a Mocktoberfest, a little play on words. It's a fake Oktoberfest. And every time I make it, I get requests from my friends who say they want me to make it again. So I think it's a super idea. I've only ever done it, I think, with the Chico strain, so with US05, and it's been delicious. I may have done it once with the Kolsch. I don't remember. But anyway, keep up the great work. I love listening to you guys, and I'll call for questions later. Bye.
Call for a question. That's how Todd prefers it. Peter, thank you so much for the feedback. Jason, are you?
That's actually awesome. Hey, real quick, I wonder if he would be willing to share his recipe with us, because I'd like to see what it is.
Do the Mocktoberfest?
Yeah,
sure.
Let's see if we could get the recipe, and maybe we could brew it and try it out and go from there.
Yeah, crowd pleasers are always something we want to replicate. So, Jason, are you a friend or familiar with pseudo lagers? You ever done one where?
Oh yeah. So my third and fourth batches were attempts at lagers. I built a big styrofoam fermentation chamber and put it in our living room. And the first two were just undrinkable Band-Aid beer. My third and fourth attempts at lagers actually came up pretty decent, but at that point, I could no longer have the giant styrofoam fermentation chamber in the living room anymore. So
what?
So yeah. So I did a lot of beers with like the Cal Lager strain, 2112. And with pretty good results. Even played around with some of the, like 3470 at ale temps, and or something like Chico. If you get it, the colder end of the range, you should get something pretty clean that'll, be a nice pseudo lager.
But where you're at in Massachusetts, do you have temperature control issues this time of the year? For like, I'm assuming you have a basement.
Yeah, so I have a basement now. When I started brewing, I was in an apartment. So I can brew lagers just at my basement temperature. I still use temperature control just because I want to cold crash it, clean it up a little bit if I'm doing a lager. But for a couple of years, I would do lagers in the winter, ales in the summer when we moved here.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people, I think, do that, just, seasonal brewing because of convenience, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, if I want to do an ale in the winter, I'd have to get, the heat wrap and the temp controller, and you'd have to cover it up so it's, stay warm. I mean, I could do it, but, I like taking advantage of being able to actually do lagers after not being able to do lagers in the apartment for a while.
Right. That is cool. Kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Where it just makes it more, not special. I'm trying to think of the word for like describing something that, unique to a time period. Like, oh, I just brewed this at this time, and it makes you almost want it more when that season comes back around. Not like me, where I just have Kolsch and then a Kolsch, and then on top of Kolsch. And Todd, I'm actually bringing 10 gallons of Kolsch to you.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, to me and James, right?
Yeah, well, a $5 for you and a $5 for James. Because I have 10
I didn't even realize that. So that the lager strain you were talking about, 2112, that's like my favorite Rush album of all time. So we got to come up with a Rush tie-in using that'd be fun.
I have an awesome California Common recipe I can send you.
And, that would be great. And we have, actually, Imperial makes a really good California Common yeast as well. Cable car. Yeah. And we've brewed that. We've brewed with that several times. We haven't done a California Common in a long time.
Like 5 years. No, like 3 years. It's like been like
so maybe we should. James and I are going to be there in San Francisco in what is it? 2 months?
Yeah, in April.
So yeah. So maybe we could do a California Common again. That'd be fun.
I think
absolutely.
Trub Club members would love that. The True to Style series that we include recipes from every now and then are usually the ones where more people sign up for that month. That's why, like this month, we've had 5 people join for the alt beer because they're like, oh my gosh, I want to brew an alt beer, and I'm like, I want you to brew one too. That's the whole point of it. So we got the listener feedback in, and let's go to the questions. Starting the first one, for our buddy Bobby, use the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Bobby wrote, how do you store your grains? My plan is to buy bulk and save money, but I need a way to store the grains to make sure they stay fresh and bug free. I store them at Todd's place. I don't store my grain. So Jason,
Yeah.
again, all of these are kind of grain related. I'm not trying to just throw softballs at you, but you're the grain man. You're the malt master. How would you say for a home brewer is the best way to store grains if they're buying bulk?
Yeah, so I think kind of the gold standard, or what a lot of homebrewers use, are the Vittles vaults, the pet food containers. You can get like the bigger ones that'll take 50, 55 pounds of dog food, cat food. They'll take a full sack of grain. So I have probably about 6 of them in my basement with different base malts. That I have one that's had the same bag of wheat. I've been using 1 pounder at a time for God knows how long. Yeah, so for like a regular 5-gallon brew bucket fermenter, that'll take generally half of a sack. You can use the regular lid, but if you get the Gamma Seal lid with that rubber lining, it'll keep the moisture out. So really, that's what you want to keep moisture out. You want to keep insects out, and you want to deter rodents because they'll smell malt and they'll go for it. They'll chew through bags. And if you get any type of insect infestation, good luck getting rid of it. On the homebrew scale, it's easy. Just you throw it out and you get a new bag of grain. If you have a warehouse full of malt and you have sawtooth beetles or something like that, then it's a problem. The regular Rubbermaid Sterilite totes, I've seen people use those. They can work okay. My only concern there is, again, it's not like sealed. Mm-hmm. So if depending on how long it takes you to go through that bag of grain, you might pick up moisture. It might kind of stale a little bit, but that could be kind of a cheaper alternative. But I've seen like those big Vittles vaults, specials on Amazon or Petco
or Chewy. Yeah.
Chewy. Yeah. $25, $30 on sale. You can, buy a few of them at a time, or just one if you're just going through, that one bag of base malt. And also for specialty malts, I like using like the plastic cereal containers. So I usually keep, chocolate malt, roasted barley, Crystal 60, caramel, and like the little 10-pound ones. And then some of the other crystals or flakes and like little 5-pound ones. That way, if I want to brew something, chances are I'll have it on hand and I can just get, put my grist together, mill it up, and mash in.
We've had questions before where they've asked us like, I'm going to buy bulk. What do you suggest? And for me, I'm always like, oh, I could deal with just what I need to make the Kolsch, right? And Todd is like, oh, I want some of every base malt possible and these specialties. Is that how you are as well, where if you're buying bulk, you want to have your bases covered because you don't know if next weekend you're going to be in the mood to brew a hazy or you're going to be in the mood to brew a lager?
Yeah, that's kind of what it evolved into. So I started with a bin of wheat, a bin of our Planet Pale Malt, our Pilsner, and I think Maris Otter. And then I got a bag of Munich malts. I'm friends with the guys up Maine Malt House up in northern Maine. So if I have something where I want to use a domestic malt, I keep a bag of their Mapleton Pale Malt, which is really nice, on hand. And then I think there's one more that I kind of rotate. So it kind of, as is with this hobby, it kind of grew over time. Yep. Same thing with the specialty malts.
I generally imagine when you work for Muntons, Todd made that because
it was just funny that the Muntons guy would have Maris Otter at his home. Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all, Muntons makes that stuff? Huh.
Yeah, absolutely.
We love Maris Otter. Actually, isn't that what that would be the base you'd use in that California Common, isn't it?
You could. Absolutely. Because it'll give it like a nice bready, nutty flavor. Or if you wanted something a little bit lighter, a little bit closer to an American malt, we make an extra pale Maris, which is around 2L in color. So it's not quite as bready and nutty as Maris Otter Pale or the Maris Otter that most of the listeners are familiar with. So you get a little bit more of that Pils type character, but a little bit of that Maris. It's kind of like that Maris is characters you maybe just turn down a little bit, and it'll let kind of the specialty malt maybe shine a little bit more.
Because the average bag is 55 pounds, right? Would you
50 for domestic, okay. Usually 55 for imported because 25 kilos.
Yeah.
We don't do metric here.
We don't. I can barely do whatever we do. Would you say then that, because they make them, like you said, the 55 Vittles containers.
Yeah.
A home brewer is probably going to be buying in that range. So it would make sense to buy the smaller ones for your base malt since you're going to be buying base grains in that size quantity, right?
Correct. Yeah. So you'd want to make sure you could, accommodate the whole bag. Another thing is that when I worked at the homebrew shop, what we would do is when the grain bin got low and we had to fill it up, is empty whatever you have left in the bottom, put it in a separate bin, put the new bag in, and then put the old malt on top. That way you don't just keep continually burying the same 5 pounds of malt at the bottom of the bin. You want to use the old stuff first.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we have done as well with ours.
Yeah.
And I was going to throw it to you, Todd. The vittles are what I've seen you use forever. Is it just because that was industry standard or because you found them to work the best?
Because when we bought Homebrew Supply, they had all of them.
I like that.
Yeah.
Because it was given to me. Yeah. But you don't store them at home at all because you don't need to. You're not that far a drive away from the office. But
No, I'm at the office every day. So yeah, all my grain is here. I don't store anything at home. I have some.
Yeah.
I have a few things in the fridge like hops, but it's always just left over from recipes.
when I was going to say, when we take grains to your place, we usually will either rebag them and in the original bag, like the whole recipe, we can sometimes James will put in one of the old grain bags and make it all fit and take it there. Or y'all have
Oh yeah, I have lots of empty grain bags. Definitely,
Yeah.
I just don't have any grain.
Or like Jason was just mentioning, the buckets. Those seem to work pretty well, and when they snap down, I imagine they're pretty bug proof, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. Just
No, they got an O-ring in them, but
yeah,
they're a pain in the butt to open and close. Is the problem. So the
that's
things
the
you're talking about would be. I know exactly what you're talking about. Those things are great.
yeah. It's like an extra ring that goes around the top with a lid. It screws on like the Vittles vault.
So it still pushes down on your bucket, but then you can open the top just like one of those other ones.
Yeah, I mean, you peel off a bucket off one of those lids enough time, it'll crack inevitably. It's just they have a shelf life.
They do,
and I almost always cause bleeding when I'm taking lids off and on.
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
You bleed easy though. I've noticed that. Like randomly, Todd will be at his desk. Like, Todd, why is your hand bleeding? Oh, I don't know. It's just like, you should see someone about that. But and Bobby was talking about making sure his grains stay bug free. We're no strangers to having received a bag with buds in it and just using it. Is that bad, Jason? Like, was that Todd calls it protein? Is it?
Yeah. I mean, homebrew scale, it's fine. For a commercial brewer, the concern would be maybe the weight of the grain in the bag is diminished somewhat.
Good point. Right.
Or you don't want the bugs on the one bag if you're storing other malts, you don't want your grain room to get infested.
Yeah, no, you're right. Infestation is a nightmare if it occurs. But yeah, one time we had a bag. I forget the supplier, but James called them and they're like, "Yeah, just throw it out. We'll send you a new one." James and Todd were like, "Not throwing this out."
Oh, James definitely couldn't. James could not throw it out. And I'll tell you what he did. He froze it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So by freezing it, he killed the bugs, and then he brewed with it. So
And it was a great beer.
Yeah, freezing it will kill the bugs. Only thing to be careful of is when you freeze it and defrost it, freezing it might not kill the eggs. So they might come back if someone at home tries that.
Boiling water kills them, though, Jason.
Yes, it does.
That's right. That's right.
But if someone freezes the bag, like leaves it outside in the cold and then lets it sit for 6 months,
The eggs, yeah.
just double check.
Yeah, double check. Yeah, we don't let grains sit around that long.
No.
Bobby, thank you so much for submitting your question. This is a great time to remind y'all, if and when we take your question on a future episode, we do give you gift cards to techconnection.com. Text submitted ones are $15. Voicemail submitted ones are $25. That was Todd's, or I think it was my idea, and you just reaffirmed it, right?
Yeah,
I
like it. I like having people call in and talk.
Yeah, teamwork. So anyways, our second question for this week's episode was a text from our buddy Jay using our hotline at 325-305-6107. Jay wrote, "Is there really a difference between American Pilsner malt and German Pilsner malt besides the noticeable price difference? Continental malt," which for people listening don't know, that just means from overseas. That's my understanding of the word continental. Continental malt does usually cost a little bit more, but people sometimes prefer it for the authenticity of the recipe they're brewing. And others do swear, no, it's because they just make malt better over there. Jason, what's your opinion on American versus continental?
Yeah. So there are differences more than just price. Taste is subjective. We all have our preferences. Now, in terms of just how the malt performs, there are, more tangible differences. The barley varieties grown in the U.S. and grown in Europe are going to be different. The barley varieties we have in the U.S. until very recently were developed for the large lager brewers, your Bud, your Miller, your Coors. And what are they looking for? They're looking for malt with really high diastatic power because they're using a lot of rice, a lot of corn. They need to convert those starches. They're not concerned with flavor. So American malt, the big maltsters, they're going to blend different batches, different variety types to a certain product specification. And these are varieties that are, again, bred for high diastatic power. So what that means is, it's going to convert those adjuncts, but there's always going to be a trade-off. When you have more DP, it means you're going to have more protein on a per pound basis. So the protein is going to add haze to the beer. So if you're doing a lager, chances are you're going to want that beer to be clear. And it's also going to add FAN or free amino nitrogen. So that's imperative for yeast growth. That's why, when you're making seltzers, you're adding yeast nutrients. Basically, you're adding FANs, so your beverage ferments out. But where an American malt is going to be higher in FAN, that can create what's called a hot wort or a hot mash. And what that will do is, the FAN helps that yeast reproduce. So if you have a lot of FAN, you're going to have a lot of yeast reproduction, and that can lead to a lot of yeast growth, a lot of Trub. Not necessarily an issue on the homebrew scale, but it can be an issue, for a commercial brewery. And also excessive FAN, it can lead to elevated, esters, again, because that yeast is just, procreating, going crazy in the wort. So a way to kind of work around that if you're using a domestic malt is just do a protein rest, break that down a little bit more. And also that protein, it's going to slow down compared to a European malt, your sparge, your lautering. So doing a mash out, to get a little bit of a smoother runoff, also not a bad idea if you're using a domestic malt in an all malt brew. But really these malts were developed for adjunct brewing. The Brewers Association and craft beer, they're starting to get a seat at the table with AMBA, the American Malting Barley Association, and they are starting to develop some varieties more conducive to all malt brewing. And the big thing with commercial brewers especially is when your ratio or your percentage of protein is higher, your extract or your starches are going to be a little bit lower. So for a home brewer, if I did a Pilsner with 10 pounds of American pills, 10 pounds of European pills, if everything else is the same, I should get a little bit more fermentable sugar, a little bit more extract out of the imported malt.
Interesting.
Okay.
That was so much info. I loved it. As you're talking about, I was like, I did not know I wanted to know all of this. That was it. So,
Yeah.
And also too, with the 2021 crop where we talked about the yields being down, the stuff that the maltsters did take in was even higher in protein. So some of these things we're talking about, like the protein levels and the FAN, are going to be even more of an issue. A Country Malt Group put out a white paper to brewers, kind of talking them through, okay, this is how you want to use this year's crop if you bring it in. And that's also part of the reason why, some of the big, US and Canadian maltsters are blending in with, imported malt to try to lower those protein levels and make the malt more usable for the pro brewers. On the homebrew side, depending on when your shop got their malt, they might be getting new crops soon. So either now or maybe a couple months from now, if you're doing a batch you've done before and you notice that yield is off, that's probably why you're probably going from the old crop to the new crop, and the efficiency might go down. So another good idea, just keep some DME on hand if you want to adjust your gravity.
What do you think? What would be a range that it might go down as far as efficiency?
I've heard as much as 10% on the pro side. That might be,
10%. Damn. Wow.
Yeah, that might be on the high end. Like I've heard some of the protein. So like typically on a domestic malt, you're around 11% protein, 11.5. I've heard some of the barley they've had to buy in is 12, 13%. So whether they're blending that down or or blending it with other low protein batches they're getting in. But do expect to on the homebrew side, you're not typically getting a certificate of analysis when we're trying to go to the shop or you buy online, but you might notice that those yields are falling off.
We supply certificates. It's me saying it's good. And I just,
well, this may solve my problem, because one of the problems I've had the last few batches is my system's too efficient. So I'm constantly overhitting the alcohol level, or the original gravity. And I've been trying to adjust that before I put it in the fermenter, but now it'll be self-adjusting. I'll get my efficiency back down to 70% now, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
what was the last one you brewed? It's like was it the alt beer that was too like it should be a boozy alt now? I forget. No, we did the alt beer.
It'd be a sticky, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, sticky. Yeah, it's no, my ESB wasn't terribly high, but it was a little higher than it should have been. Probably 5.6 or something. And 5.7. Yeah. And then, all of my beers have been a little high, so if I'm trying to hit for 5, I'll get 5.5 and even with, kind of adding some extra water at the end so I can take that gravity down. But, when you do that, you can affect other things like your hops and, obviously. So what I really need to do is probably adjust the amount of grain I'm putting in there, but I haven't got to that point yet.
I'll go on a limb and say I think your average new to the hobby brewer, it does not even know if they're getting domestic. I mean, if they're going to their shop, right? I don't know if that's on the forefront of their mind. And Jason, in your opinion, should it be on the forefront of their mind, the origin of their malt?
100%. Know the malt that's going in your beer, even if you just know the brand or the country. Most retailers now will say, RAR, 2-row, Muntons, 2-row, Vireman Pills. If it just says US or UK, ask, they should know what brand it is. Because, each malt house is going to be a little bit different. And then, obviously each geographic region is going to be quite different. So definitely, know what's going in there. Typically if you're getting a recipe kit, like an all grain one, you'll get your big bag of malt, but in the instructions, usually it'll say what malt it is that's in there.
All right, note to self, Todd, I need to start adding that to the recipe sheet. But
yeah. Well, one of the things that I've noticed that happened, Jason, and during the really high point of the coronavirus, when our sales got to the point where it was like Christmas every week, especially on recipe kits, was we just couldn't get the grain that we wanted to get. And if we had a lot of brands on the site, the problem we ran into was the 2-row we have this week is different than the 2-row we have next week. Mm-hmm. And I think now that's kind of calmed down, I think you'll see most sites, I think, will start to return to putting the brand on, doing a better job of having the brand on there. So
yeah, that could be a challenge for any shop. And I encourage, listeners to, don't be afraid to, substitute, work with your shop or your retailer. They're doing the best they can to keep stuff in. When I worked at the shop, sometimes that US 2-row would be Brie, sometimes it would be RAR.
Like you said a minute ago, it's knowing what's going into your beer. That's like step one of creating the consistently good beer, right? Like if you have different ingredients, different origin of malt, that could make the difference for why this batch of my Kolsch tasted different, or this batch of my pale tasted different, or whatever. Like being consistent will help you make consistent beer.
Yeah, there was a great article just published last week on the Beervana blog. The article is kind of about the craft malt movement in the UK, but really just talked about the importance of malt generally. So I encourage everyone listening to check that out.
Yeah, I'll try to include it in the show notes if I remember. Let me make a note.
Mm-hmm.
I would maybe send an email, Jason.
I'm making a note on my computer right now. I'm typing. Oh, my hands are singing. Hold on. There we go. So anyway, Jay, hope that helped answer your question. We got one final question for this week's show. It came from our buddy Kevin, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Kevin wrote, "Sad story, but my local shop closed its doors. This means that they did a closeout sale, and I came home with a lot of goodies. Some of the goodies I got were free expired cans of LME, which is liquid malt extract. The expiration dates are all late 2020. None of the cans seem to be damaged, and the only thing wrong with them is that they're expired. Are these safe to use? Assuming that they are, what's the worst that can happen to the batch when I use them in? Can LME go stale? They were free, so the only thing I might be wasting is my time. However, if you guys think it's unsafe, then I'll throw these away. I love the pod and wish you all the best, Kevin. Todd, what's the oldest expired can you've used? Because we've used expired malt before.
Yeah, I think, you'd probably be better to answer, but I know that the one thing I would look at is just like anything canned. You always want to see if it's popping out, if the top or bottom are popping out, because that's your friend botulism coming to get you. So
I think I get these luscious lips.
If you, I think if you don't see any issue with the can, it's probably safe. I just don't know how good it would be. And I think we have somebody here that can give us a better answer on that.
We do.
So malt extract, it's a lot like honey, where honey never goes bad because it has a similarly low pH level, because, wort is in itself getting, you're lowering the pH just from the malt, and then you condense it down, you're even lowering that pH. So it's not really going to go bad. I wouldn't worry about botulism or anything harmful growing in there. Now, it can get kind of stale. What'll happen is it'll oxidize, the color might darken a little bit, the flavor might not be peak, and depending on how it was stored, temperature, that type of thing. But it is going to be safe. If you use it to make beer, it will be beer. Will it be as good as it was if you opened that can in 2020? Maybe, maybe not. Tough to say. But if you are concerned about the freshness, I'd probably do more, maybe like an amber or a darker style where you're using a fair amount of crushed specialty malt. That'll give you a little bit more of that fresh malt character, kind of introduce that back in, and then use the extract as kind of the base of your fermentables. Or if you want to do like a high gravity beer, just boost it up, like a barley wine, Imperial Stout, throw a can in there, boost the gravity. The most of your fermentables are going to be coming from, the rest of your grains. So again, any stale character that's in there, you're going to be diluting that down. You could also dilute it in water, make a malt vinegar with it. Probably be a lot of malt vinegar, a whole can of malt extract, but definitely, feel free to take some and, give that a try. And also, malt extract is a food ingredient as much as it is a brewing ingredient. We probably sell way more liquid extract and way more dry malt extract to the food sector than we do for brewing or for homebrew. So if you go to our website, www.muntons.com/cook_type/all, we have a whole bunch of recipes on there that use malt extract, so if anyone has, old DME, old LME, or just wants to play around, cooking with malt, there's some recipes on there you can use for inspiration.
Oh, interesting. That I'll have to put that in the show notes too, making a note again. I didn't even think. Todd, quit shaking your head. That is a good point, though. People, it's kind of like with the spent grains, where people are like, I don't know what to do with these grains. Like, well, you can, bake them. You can make bread. If you have a puppy, assuming there's no hot particles in it, you can make treats and all that. I didn't even think about that with LME, how much the food industry uses it versus brewing. I'm such a single-minded person, Jason, that I forget other people exist.
I knew nothing about this until, I started with Muntons, and then it's part of my onboarding. They're giving me all these chocolate truffles with different malt extracts in there, and they all taste different. And cookies and crackers made with malt is just kind of show what malt can do in food.
Now, also part of your job, though, brewing and all the brewing you've done, have you used, do y'all have a warehouse that just somehow some can was back in the back behind all these other cans you had no idea about, and you hate to just throw it away, and you used it?
Probably.
I just don't look at the expiration date when I'm using them.
Yeah. I think I have a couple of our beer kits that are a few years old down in the basement. Maybe I'll play around and make one of them, see what happens.
Well, do you still? I mean, I know we're all grain brewers here, but do you utilize LME ever into your brew day? I know DME is very common for people when you're having to make up numbers and stuff, or if you're making a starter or whatnot. I guess, is LME as common in any given brew day for you as DME could be?
I probably use more LME than DME. Like I'll use DME for yeast starters or to boost the gravity. If I'm doing an extract batch, I think it's just because what I've always used is the liquid. And plus DME, it clumps, it gets on your hands.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I still do I haven't brewed since August, which is the longest I've gone without brewing since I've been brewing. My basement's needs to be straightened up, and that's my excuse to not brew.
Todd has brewed 9 times more than you since August, or just last week.
I've brewed 6 batches in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah. It's one of those
15 gallons each. Yeah.
Once I do one batch, it's just getting the snowball going down the hill. Because I have one beer on tap. That last beer I did, it was to the point where before our big snowstorm, I was on the Total Wine website, and I'm thinking, should I just buy a keg of commercial beer? I couldn't bring myself to do it, but I was close.
Oh, I hear sad music playing. Well, you actually, where you're at, you have good craft beer in your area.
Yep. So I live in Beverly, Massachusetts, a suburb of Boston, and I have 4 breweries within walking distance. So this one I'm wearing right here is Backbeat Brewing. So also a customer of mine. And he does everything. So he has 3 or 4 hazies on at any time, a couple West Coast, a couple lagers, and 4 beer engines.
Oh, that's cool.
So can you not go to that customer in Texas? In a lot of places, we can take a corny keg and get it like half filled because you can only get the equivalent of a case of beer or something like that. So can you go to one of those customers where you live and have them fill up or half fill a keg or something?
Yeah, I could, or I could buy a sixtel. Because I know one of the breweries in town, they were advertising, like a keg sale. So you can do stuff like that.
Yeah, I wish where I'm at, there are good breweries here in town, but they're not walking distance. But
here's one right here. This is great brewery.
Oh, Middleton.
Nice.
Been there.
Middleton's incredible beer.
Oh no, look at this shirt. I love this shirt.
No, take it off and show us. Yeah.
You don't see it?
Yeah, for audio. Hold on, let me read it because the vast majority of our audience is still audio only. It says, "Where beer is brewed, no evil can exist." I think they made that up.
The guy that isn't that guy that owned that? Isn't he like a minister? I believe he is.
Oh, I have no idea.
I think he's the same guy that used to be further out. So he was like a college or maybe NFL football player and then became a minister. So
wow.
I've never heard this story. I've just gone there to drink. I need to introduce myself more.
I didn't know you'd ever been there to drink. I thought last time I asked you about it, you said you hadn't been there.
No, I hadn't been there since moving here. I haven't been there all that year.
So you haven't been there since you moved really close to where the brewery is.
I haven't been to any brewery since I moved here almost a year ago to the day, actually.
Okay.
In this new spot. And I haven't been to any brewery besides Teddy's and Brownwood. Been there a few times. But besides that, haven't been to any brewery. I need to go to Milton. I drive by it every time I'm coming up to see you, Todd. It's on my drive out there. There's, I think, and then I go by Real in Blanco. Roughneck, I think, is out there too. There's a lot of breweries I pass by. And just see ya. But I need to, yeah. But again, though, you've been brewing so much. I've had a lot of good beer on tap. We need to ship you some, Jason. I'm getting depressed.
Yeah, Jason. I think I actually have 9 beers on tap right now, and I have 3 more that are about to be kegged. I mean, 9 different styles. So wow. You should come visit right now.
I was going to say, you need to, I don't think we're his territory anymore, but you need to find an excuse to come to the ranch. Is what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. My territory, my job's evolved. My territory is kind of North America at this point. So
we are your territory.
Yeah.
We really don't buy grains anyway. So
I just meant
we promote grains.
We promote
absolutely.
Grains. That's right. And there are people right near us that I know you do business with. So you could put it on the company bill that I had to go visit these people, but then just come hang out with us at the ranch and we'll shoot guns and drink beer.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Perfect. So wrapping up his question though, LME, you're saying it can go stale, but it's not unsafe.
It's not unsafe. It just might not be peak freshness, peak flavor, but it'll still, you can ferment it. It'll make beer.
It'll make beer. Again, though, but if there's dents in the cans or whatever, just to cover my bases, maybe don't use it. Maybe.
Well, I have seen cans of not your product, but Cooper's, where the top of the can puffed out. And if the can puffs out, I wouldn't use it.
If you want to be safe, that's maybe, not a horrible idea.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. You're like James. You're like, I don't want to throw anything out. Okay, maybe don't use it. Those cans aren't that expensive. Get rid of it. Don't.
I've definitely used a lot of stuff out of date before. I don't dates, especially on cans, not just this, but all kinds of cans. If you read them now, they never say expires. They say best used by date. Well, what the heck does that mean? I mean, it just means that maybe they're not going to be quite as fresh, but they're not going to be bad for you.
How old was that cider kit we used a couple of weeks ago? That was out of date by a couple of years.
At least a year.
At least a year. I think it was longer. And is that done yet? Are we gonna? Oh
yeah, I need to keg that too. So I have 4 things I need to keg. Yeah,
I love it. But wait till the alt beer because we're filming that next week for filtering. We filter beer. Jason, do you filter beer at all whenever you're kegging?
No. Never have.
Me neither.
I don't either. But you just said, Josh, you don't, and I don't, but you started the comment by saying we filter beer.
Oh, did I?
It doesn't sound like we do though.
No, I mean we're filming a.
Okay.
We're filming a filtering.
James filters beer,
and he's not here, but he filters usually.
I mean, I have filtered beer before, but I only once. I was. I'd rather just let it sit longer, really cold, and fall away because I'm too lazy to go through all the work.
That's right.
Yeah, maybe if I was doing like a Kolsch for like a competition or something, I might think about doing it.
I like people couldn't see that, but Josh gave the big lazy thumbs up when I said I'm too lazy to do that.
2 thumbs up. That's right.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up.
I've been around you for going on 14 years, man. Where do you think I picked it up from? Okay. No, I've been lazy before I met him. Anyways, that wraps it up, guys. Jason, man, we really appreciate you coming back on. And let's not wait 2 years and some change to have you on again. But hopefully, if I can get our seminar thing in too, hopefully we'll both be presenting at HomebrewCon this year, and we'll see you in Pittsburgh. So appreciate your time, my friend, and we'll talk to you later.
All right, awesome. Thanks a lot.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or be Todd's best friend and leave us a voicemail at 325-305-6107. Brew better beer with the new Grainfather G40 all-in-one electric system available now at grainfather.com. I swear I can speak English. Also, you'll get a free pack of Imperial Yeast along with premium recipes from us when you join our Trub Club. Go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour to learn more. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.